yesterday. Yeah, you might learn a thing or two, right? Oh, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, so well done.
We do appreciate it.
Oh, talking time, yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about it.
I think that's really.
Raise your hand, it's a little cold from holding on to my cup of water.
Nice job.
Oh yeah. Right in the bike. Yeah, that's
I think it's.
Yeah.
I think it is. So, but anytime federal funds, state funds, money that's outside, give us a lot of time.
good for everybody.
Just to cut
That's right.
I saw him sticking it.
But in this one,
Standing in line. And I have that's kind of hard for us. Yeah, I think they are. It's a lot of them. Don't mind picking through the ranch.
Activities because we don't typically have any. I wrapped up.
We got Mercy.
and then 8's pretty close to 6. Yeah, we got 30. They make humor. My name's on the director's I think the program director got that better. It'll be. I don't read the. Hey. Other times.
That was a new one time maybe, not twice.
Just enough. Just enough.
Just enough to make me crazy and Thank you.
I guess I was thinking more of the,
Sure, but that's why we didn't use the local bid of preference. Yeah, any our policy, federal funds that the feds will not allow us. But yeah, good question.
Okay.
How we doing? Good. Hey, did you get my email? Yeah, about Washington? Yes. I'm in. You're going to come in. We'll talk about it. That's fine.
Friday, right?
Friday.
Yeah, it's an excellent question.
Okay. That's fine, yeah. And you guys are all showing your laptop and everything, right? Okay.
Hopefully it won't be long.
Ladies?
Why, thank you.
I'm just gonna proactively do it. Since it might be slightly long.
I remembered to bring
Yep,
you an extra
thank
pen,
you.
and you had your own.
I thought I brought this because I wonder if Angie's going to remember.
Well, there'll be ample opportunity. It was nice. I would have done it differently. You know.
We're ready to go here, aren't we? Call to order a public hearing pertaining to an amendment to an annexation agreement regarding 176.88 acre tract located east of Veterans Parkway and north of Greenbriar Subdivision. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry. Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. Preston? Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mrs. Gaines?
Here.
Mayor Kus?
Here. Is there anyone wishing to speak pertaining to an amendment to an annexation agreement regarding a parcel of land located at East Veterans Parkway and north of the Greenbriar subdivision? Mr. Pratt?
Mayor Kus, members of the council. My name is John Pratt. I'm an attorney. I reside here in Bloomington, Illinois. I represent the owner of the tract, Country Acres Land Corporation. And I wanted to thank you for hearing us tonight, and also thank the staff for working with us on this project. It's a very exciting project, and we've been happy to work with staff on the project. In saying that, there is one slight disagreement between the landowner and staff on this project, and that involves the billboard signs. There's not a lot in your package about the billboards. There are 2 existing billboards, and this is a 180-acre tract. It's a very large tract, and we're talking about just 2 billboard signs at issue. We would like to keep the billboards. Staff wants to cut us down to 1 billboard. This appears to just be a preference type issue because the billboards are in compliance with the code. There's no issue about that. It just seems to be a preference between staff to have us down to 1, and we would like to keep our 2 existing billboards. This preference issue goes back to amended annexation agreement back in the year 2000. That was 16 years ago. These 2 signs have existed. They've been no problem. They're here today, and we would just like to keep them. We appreciate your attention to this matter. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak pertaining to an amendment to an annexation agreement regarding a tract of land located east of Veterans Parkway and north of Greenbriar subdivision? And third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to an amendment to an annexation agreement regarding a tract of land located east of Veterans Parkway and north of the Greenbriar subdivision? Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, the public hearing is adjourned. Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Town Council for April 18th, 2016. Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mrs. Gaines?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mayor Kus?
Here, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, our first item of business is the Omnibus Agenda. These items will be covered by one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. And I would like to be excused from voting on any bills I may have incurred my duties as mayor. Mr. McBride?
I wish to be excused from my one voice reimbursement.
Thank you. Mr. Fritzen?
Asked to be excused for voting on the Bloomington offset invoice.
Motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Items on the omnibus that we will be voting on here momentarily are approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 4th, 2016, and approval of town and normal expenditures for payment as of April 13th, 2016. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids and the purchase of a 2016 Ram ProMaster City Tradesman cargo van from Sam Lehman Chrysler Jeep Dodge of Bloomington, Illinois, in the amount of $22,082.43. A resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Tank Industry Consultants for evaluation, engineering, contact administration, testing, and construction services for the West Reservoir Interior Rehabilitation Project. A resolution to accept bids and award a contract to Rowe Construction Company, a division of United Contractors Midwest Incorporated, in the amount of $478,956.05 for the 2016 non-MFT street resurfacing project. A resolution accepting a permanent public sidewalk easement from Torrington LLC at 608 Hester Avenue. A resolution authorizing execution of a conditional right of entry with Mr. Dan Kelly. A resolution conditionally and partially approving a final plat with within 1.5 miles of corporate limits by expedited process having to do with the Feasley Cummings subdivision. And that's our omnibus agenda tonight. Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, the agenda is approved. We do have a number of general orders tonight, the first of which is a resolution conditionally approving the Fourth Amendment to the annexation agreement for the Northland commercial subdivision.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there a discussion on this item? Mr. Peterson?
I think it would be appropriate, Ms. Davison's coming up, that we address at staff the sign that Mr. Pratt mentioned during his public testimony. We just want to make sure the council has the complete explanation on that recommendation. So there's a little bit of history involved.
Yes, so this particular agreement has been through the process, this will be the fifth time. In the original agreement, the issue of billboards was addressed, permitting up to, at one point, there was a discussion of 3 billboards, and in one of the proposed amendments, shortly after the original agreement in '99, there was a request for a third billboard, and that was denied. And so staff felt it was important to stick with what seemed to be the original council decision back in '99, which was around the time that the sign code was undergoing some comprehensive analysis, and the preference was to eliminate as many of those billboards as possible, and staff didn't see any reason to not continue on that line of thinking. So that was the staff recommendation, and Planning Commission discussed it and felt like that was appropriate as well, which is what brings us here today.
Thank you. Questions?
So that billboard is not directional for anything that's going to be there, or it's just an advertising billboard?
Well, at one point, the agreement also speaks to the sign that is for the development, the Menard sign, and then signs that pertain to the other businesses that are in the development. So those are, I suppose, somewhat directional. But there are two other conventional billboards that we're speaking about, and they're typical. They're rented out to whoever wants to be on them. So they're off premise. They're typically not advertising something that's on the property.
Ms. Lorenz?
So there's two now, and the difference of opinion is in reducing it by one?
Correct, correct. The agreements have always permitted one of them to stay forever.
Okay.
It didn't specify which one. And right now, there's a very tall one that's over by Furniture Row, and it's very tall because that's where Veterans goes up really high, so it doesn't appear very tall when you're on Veterans. And then there's another one further south. Either of those can stay, and staff doesn't have a preference, but per the agreements, one of them should have actually been removed years ago, and we just didn't follow up.
So that's the 99 agreement? that you referred
Yes,
to.
and then it held through the
Okay.
amendment.
So you're trying to stay
So
consistent?
the parties all agreed at one time that eventually one billboard would stay. We had two for a while. It slipped through the cracks. The
Got it.
second one has remained. And we just felt, we're giving the developer a certain amount of time to get that removed. Felt we should comply with the original agreement, which was apparently okay with all parties at one point in the past. Now they're asking to keep that second one, and staff just feels that our recommendation is just return to the original plan with one billboard.
Further discussion on this item? Mr. Fritzen?
I did notice that in the report on page 6-3 regarding the billboards, and then where in the resolution or the agreement, the amendment to the agreement, you know, on page 6-7, there's a paragraph about the signs. Where does it say we're going to wind up with one?
That is a good question. That would be O'Brien.
In the resolution, it's on page 6-5, section 2.
Okay.
In the amendment itself, it doesn't have the removal of the billboard. This
Right.
would be a requirement
Okay.
to the change to the amendment that's in the packet.
No surprise to anyone, I like signs. And having just traveled on vacation over the past week and been frustrated several times about the lack of signs, especially in large developments, and I'm talking more your actual monument signs or signs that are specific to an on-site business. It's very difficult in areas where you're not familiar with the surroundings to sometimes find businesses, and you're past them. Then you kind of become a hazard because you're trying to figure out how to turn around and get back to where you thought you wanted to go. And there were other times when billboards did lead me to a particular exit, to a particular location. So I find them very useful and not eyesores. And to me, two signs on a tract of this size and in a location such as this, where we do have a lot of out-of-town folks coming to shop in our community, I think these are valuable helps to people. So I would prefer to see the signs stay as they are. But would offer an amendment to the resolution, but I can wait on that until we have discussion. Or
I just want to be clear on this. These are not directional signs or signs
No, but
related to the
they can be, depending on the advertiser could put information up there that's going to direct somebody to their place of business.
Okay. So I'd say, yes.
What is on the signs now?
I was out there recently. I think one might actually have some space available, and the other one, I don't believe it pertains to what's going on in the development, but I don't actually know. I don't remember what the specific ad was.
And I believe, as someone who travels that often to get home, I could be wrong, but I believe one of them is potentially a Culver's sign that actually does direct to where the restaurant is, much like Councilman Fritzen suggested. correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that one of them is or was directional to Culvers.
Are these signs, do we know, are they owned by the property owner, or are they leasing the space to a sign company?
Ooh, that I don't know.
I think they're
the
leasing the
structure
space,
itself is,
John or Don, do you know, I think they're leasing the space to a sign company, I believe. The applicant's out there, he's hiding.
They own the signs. Country Acres, the land
Oh, they own them.
corporation, owns the signs. They do lease on occasion, they lease the advertising, of course.
Sure. Okay.
Before we take an amendment, any further?
Go ahead.
Mr.
So from staff's perspective, I appreciate the desire to follow a previous council's direction, being sitting on a council, but other than that, from a current perspective, are we concerned about the appearance, about the size, about the placement, about any other specifics of the signs themselves, or are we just on past precedent?
I mean, I think it being the northeastern entrance to the community, I tend to think a little more conservatively from an aesthetic perspective, although that would be in direct contrast to the idea that it's an entrance and perhaps there'd be information you'd like to see there. So, you know, and thinking down the line when those lots develop and there would be the one billboard in particular would just be out in front of a development, I don't tend to favor that. The one that's really tall that's on the north end, I don't know what else would be there. I mean, it's the ground, the difference between the ground and the road is immense. So, but I mean, there is just a level of, you know, subjectivity to it.
Ms. Gaines?
Well, I'm one of the oldest here. And I do remember when we had this whole thing about signs and, yes, Jeff?
I was gone that 4 years during when the sign code was revised.
So we had, you know, a lot of talk about this, obviously, and there was, you know, and I think it was just, we talked a lot about air pollution, a different kind of air pollution, visible pollution. And if there's signs that tell you something that's important, I get the viewpoint. But I also get concerned because there's lots of places, and I don't know if there's any right here in town, but sometimes some of the signs that can go up to advertise things are not always necessarily the best of taste from some places, and advertising some things that are not about what our community is about. And that's where I get concerned with that. And then on some of this, and again, where they're placed makes a big difference. I get, you know, where there's not a lot else out there, but if it's a big honking sign's going to be out in front of a, you know, in part of, with that development, that just seems like not very good planning. So I get, you know, that it's a revenue stream to be renting those. I understand that. So I'm not, you know, I don't want to try to keep somebody from being able to make a little bit of money, but I'm not sure it's, you know, I guess I'm just thinking it's just, I think it just leaves a lot at risk for, as we're doing a new development and making certain we're doing it right. As we're going north, this is new. And so I would hope we could really do our planning well as this is all going in. Because we're putting a lot of, you know, a lot of stuff's happening up there. And so anyway, get off my soapbox. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'd move we amend the resolution to strike Section 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion here, and we'll now be focused
Mr. Day
on...
has it.
Yeah, I just want to ask, is that enough?
We don't want to strike the entire section 2 because that's the actual approval of the amended agreement.
keeps the one,
It's just
yeah.
the condition that's,
Oh.
the signed condition that's in section 2.
So would you amend your amendment to...
Sure.
So,
To eliminate the requirement that one of the two existing billboards be removed. That's, point, is that okay with a seconder?
It is. I'll still second that.
All right. So Did we pass muster on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion?
Well, I'll weigh in. I mean, I'm also sympathetic of a revenue stream for someone, and I'm very hesitant to take that away. I'm also very sympathetic to the idea of clutter, and I don't think we want a lot of that in our community. The question I have, and I don't know if anybody here can answer it, is what has changed since 1999 when everybody apparently was okay with one billboard, and now here we are 17 years later, and we want to keep two. Can
I
anyone
tell you,
answer that?
Mr. Fritzen's concern was that he wasn't at the table.
Because I would have wanted to keep two then. I haven't changed.
As I recall, I was around when that was, and it was a compromise position at the time. The landowner wanted as many as he or she could get, and got two with a proviso that the second one, I can't remember the length of time, gave it a certain number of years before it had to be removed, and we just slipped through the crack.
Right.
We forgot to follow up on it, and it's been there, and so staff, as we reviewed it, said, well, apparently it was the expectation at one time that second billboard, it was everybody's understanding was going to go away, and everybody, including the applicant, found that acceptable, and so we felt we'll give you 5 years to kind of further amortize the investment of that billboard, and then it should come down. It's that simple. That was clearly council direction at the time, or I guess the agreement of all the parties. We just didn't feel it was necessary to change that agreement. Understand the applicant would like to have the revenue stream ongoing. That's simply it. If you all feel that you're comfortable with two billboards, that's fine. But at one point in time, everybody agreed to ultimately get to one billboard, and we just didn't catch it, and so we're trying to get back there, and I think we felt 5 years was a reasonable amount of time for that billboard to stay, and we're going to make sure it's in somebody's calendar 5 years from now to make sure that comes down. But that was staff's reasoning.
Mr. Preston?
I appreciate what a couple of my colleagues up here are sharing about the concern for potential clutter as well as quality of airspace, I guess. But I tend to think similar to Mr. Fritzen on this, that I kind of wonder if this resolution wasn't coming to us tonight, if this would be an issue that any of us would even recognize or think about. As I had mentioned earlier, I live over in the area and travel that tract numerous times a day, and can't say that I've ever, one, paid a tremendous amount of attention to the billboards necessarily, but two, certainly haven't heard anybody else or gotten the feel myself that with that amount of space, that having two billboards, and they are a far distance apart, one being at the over the train tracks north edge of the property along Veterans, and the other being south of Shepherd Road. It's just something that I don't, I appreciate the concern. I don't think that this necessarily, from my opinion, fits into the potential for clutter. It's been there for the last 16 years, and it hasn't been an issue so far. I'm kind of wondering, why the mindset would be that it is currently, if we're not talking about adding any more beyond what's already been there for a while.
Further on this? And we are not voting on the overall, we're voting on the amendment when we take this. So please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
No.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
No.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
No. The amendment passes 4-3, if I've tallied that right. So, further discussion on the overall resolution? Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 7 is a resolution approving an amended preliminary subdivision plan for the Northland Commercial Subdivision.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion on this item? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That resolution is approved. Item 8 is a conditional resolution partially approving the 9th addition to the Northland Commercial Subdivision in the town of Normal. Motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The conditional resolution is approved. Item 9 is a resolution conditionally approving a site plan for Distill on the east side of Greenbriar Drive, north of Shepherd Road. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion on this item. Mr. Fritzen?
Several of these obviously are related items, and this being the last one. I think in an economy and a business environment where development is somewhat minimal compared to some of the robust times we've been through, it's great to see a local business expanding and growing and doing so in our community, and appreciate their willingness to do that and take advantage maybe of also the market right now for the product that the craft brewing products that they produce. And so it's a kind of a local success story and one that I'm glad to see is in a position to do this. It was interesting to me the other night watching television, and an ad came on for a business that does silkscreen products online. And it was interesting that all of the different businesses that were advertising by buying the silkscreen products online were local type businesses. And those kinds of things aren't lost on me when I see that, and I go, that's interesting. The online company is encouraging all these small local businesses to come online to get silkscreen T-shirts done, when I guarantee you there are probably 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 local businesses like we have in our community that can do that kind of thing. And so it'd be kind of hard to go online and do craft brewing, I suppose. But it's again, the local aspect of things, I think, is something to be commended and to celebrate. And that's what's happening here. And hopefully this is a kind of an anchor to spur some additional development in that area. And we've had the big stores, the bigger tenants up that way, and not much else has happened since then. And so hopefully this is maybe the spark for something else.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The site plan resolution is approved. Item 10 is an ordinance rezoning properties in the town of Normal at 305 to 327 East Vernon. That's the Vernon Stables, 612 South Linden, 203, 205, 207, 211, 213, and 215 Lindell, and 808 South Linden, having to do with a parking impact zone overlay.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second. That was a second, sorry.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The rezoning ordinance is approved. Item 11 is a resolution approving a preliminary development plan for the Linden Trails Planned Unit development, also at 808 South Linden. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Here. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 12 is a resolution authorizing staff to execute a contract with River City Construction LLC for the Normal East Platform and Station Improvements Project in the amount of $2,528,500.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion on this item. Ms. Lorenz?
Question, when we have seen multiple responses to bids, and there's been a local bidder, as well as others who are not local, sometimes there's been preference given to that local, but I noticed it wasn't done here. Is there an explanation to that?
Yes, there is, as a matter of fact. Good question. We do have a local bidder's preference policy, a local purchasing policy, but whenever federal dollars are involved, and in this case, it's federal high-speed rail funds that are channeled through IDOT, we cannot use our local preference policy because the feds do not allow it.
Okay.
So whenever there's a federal component, we unfortunately can't use it.
Okay. Low bid is low bid.
Yep.
Okay.
And before calling for a vote, I think it's important to point out that the total dollars that we're approving here tonight are not coming from the town of Normal, but from the federal high-speed rail dollars. This is not a coming out of a local budget. Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 13 is a resolution waiving the formal bid process and accepting a quote from Heartland Parking Incorporated in the amount of $371,136 for the purchase and installation of parking soft equipment at the town's 3 parking decks.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion on this item, Mr. Fritzen?
A little bit of a concern, I guess, and would like to hear, I mean, obviously, there's some explanation in the report concerning the usage of the exit that's being suggested to be eliminated in the Beaufort parking deck, the one onto Beaufort, which I understand it's a low usage and it's somewhat problematic considering that traffic would exit onto a busier street than the Fell Avenue exit would be. However, if we close it, it leaves us with one exit from the garage, and that being the garage that's connected to the Marriott and our conference center. There are oftentimes large events, and that garage fills up, and I'm wondering if total closure is the way to go, or if it could be left so that when there are special events, or we know of special events, that could be an alternative that could be opened up for that type of thing, where, because I think I don't know how often, but at times, I know at events I've been attended there that parking is part of the event or the like, and so we don't have to worry about somebody swiping a card or anything when they're exiting. So I can see why, if we're going to keep it open and not have a terminal there, that would be a bit difficult. If we put a terminal there, we'd probably want to keep it open all the time to make it worthwhile. So I guess I'm looking for a compromise position or somewhere so that we still have 2 exits especially for those evenings when there's heavy usage and a lot of people are going to be exiting at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. That will not be permanently closed. There won't be a wall there. There will be bollards that will be placed that could be removed for such an event. You had mentioned a large event where we need to exit people quickly, and for whatever reason we need that additional exit, we can open it back up. So, yeah, it won't be, there won't be a permanent wall there. It will be some movable bollards that we can adjust or move those out if we need to. Great point.
Very good. Thank you.
So a question in the face of that, at such time, I'm assuming that the only time it would be removable is when we're giving free parking.
Correct. When we have to move people out quickly, yeah, it would be, because they're not going to be a pay station there, so you're exactly right.
Okay.
Or some sort of an emergency situation where we need to clear the deck quickly, yeah.
Further discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. That concludes our general orders. We have one item of new business tonight, and that is a presentation by the Executive Director of the Central Illinois Regional Broadband Network, Mark D.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Gotta get this going real quick.
Told Mark to keep it under an hour, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, I should be right at 55 minutes, so it shouldn't be a problem. First off, just thanks to the town council for having me in. I was originally here about 2 years ago to share the transition of Surbin from ISU to the Surbin LLC entity. And life at Surbin is life in the fast lane, and we've accomplished a lot over the last year and a half or 2 years. And Mark thought it'd be good for me to come and give the council another update. So since we have a few fresh faces, we will have a little brief history of Surbin. We'll also discuss how Surbin is operating today as a legal entity, and discuss a little bit about how we've been continuing our mission of connecting communities throughout Central Illinois. We've got a major reinvestment going on in the network that I'll update you on as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the economic development impact that Surbin has had in Central Illinois. So happy to answer any questions along the way or at the end, either way. So Surbin was originally grant funded under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. Some individuals at ISU applied for a grant and got in excess of $15 million to create Surbin, the Central Illinois Regional Broadband Network. So they started out creating a fiber optic network throughout Central Illinois. If you're not familiar with a fiber optic network, it is a very fast network that transmits data in light beams over glass strands, and the strand of fiber is a piece of glass about the size of a human hair. So it goes as fast as the speed of light, so it's really, really fast. It's the fastest internet I've ever been on. And so they set about building this out throughout Central Illinois. I've got some of the construction pictures. This is a horizontal boring machine, which actually bores underground down the street. It's the least disruptive to the landscaping in the right-of-way. And they bore out, and then when they get to the end of where they're boring, they attach to a spool of conduit and then pull that back underground. And so that's how the conduit gets in the ground. And then once it's there, they'll blow the fiber in. And you'll usually see a few orange things sticking up out of the ground, like that. Here, I'm going to get this. Realize I didn't have it on the... There, we can see it a little better that way. So you'll see a piece of the conduit sticking out of the ground for a few days, and then they'll come back through and they'll put a handhole in the ground. So I think with the high-speed rail going on right now, we've seen many large spools of conduit in Normal lately along the tracks there. The handhole in the ground has our name and emergency phone number stamped in it, and then we have warning posts all along our network that have our name on it as well to alert people not to dig in that area. As they were building out the network, the ISU grant team realized they wanted to connect as many communities as they can, and putting fiber in the ground is very expensive. So they wanted to hit a number of communities that had schools and libraries in them, and the best way to do that was to have some wireless portion of our network. So since they're at ISU and they had access to the top of Watterson Tower, we have a number of wireless legs that shoot microwave point-to-point FCC licensed frequencies out into these communities, and once it hits that community, at the other end of the tower, it goes back into the ground and we have fiber running through the town. Those links provide a great deal of internet to communities that don't have the type of access that we'd have in Bloomington Normal. So when the grant team was completed, they built out the Suburban network throughout central Illinois. It's a highly redundant fiber optic and wireless network providing services all throughout central Illinois. And when the grant team was operational, part of the grant requirement was community matching dollars. So they went out and signed out K through 12 school districts, municipalities, schools, libraries, museums, higher ed institutions, private schools, emergency responders. And the network was up and running, and when the grant closed at the end of December 2014, everything was transitioned to Suburban LLC. So people will say, well, how fast is Suburban? Our standard configuration that we deploy at all of our sites does 1 gig, or up to 1 gig, I should say, depending on how much bandwidth the client would like. And if they would like more than that, we can do that. We just have to change out the equipment that we put at the client site. We have many customers that are over 1 gig in capacity. Our largest customer gets 17 gig from us. The other thing about our service is that it's symmetrical service, so the upload and download speeds are the same. Traditional carriers will offer a download speed that is much greater than the upload speed. The upload speed is typically 20 to 25% of the download speed. With cloud-based apps nowadays and everybody pushing their data to the cloud, the upload speed has become more and more important over the last few years. And many of our customers like us for that. So we provide 2 basic services. We provide internet access, and then we provide intranet connectivity throughout central Illinois. So an organization like the Town of Normal uses us to connect many of your sites together. And we have other healthcare and banking institutions that use us to connect many of their sites as well. So Suburban today is operating as Suburban LLC. We're an Illinois limited liability company, and we were formed in August of 2012. We took operational responsibility and ownership of the assets created by the grant in January of 2014 and have been operating them ever since. We're also registered as a 501c3 nonprofit with the IRS. The actual LLC entity has 6 members, and the members are the City of Bloomington, the City of Pontiac, Heartland Community College, Illinois State University, the Town of Normal, and Unit 5 schools. We have a monthly board meeting, and we also have an annual planning session as well. Mark Peterson serves as the Town of Normal's representative to the board, and he's also our current board chairman, has been for the past 2 years. So as we talked about connecting communities, and that being Suburban's mission, one of the things that the board realized early on was that we have a significant number of K through 12 school districts as clients, but we don't have their voice at our board as a voice for the sector, the industry sector. The other thing is that although we may not consider Normal and Bloomington rural, the federal government does, but many of our rural communities that we serve felt like there was not a rural voice on our board of directors as well. So our board went through the process to add 2 other entities. So we added the City of Pontiac and Unit 5 just within the last 6 months or so to our entity, and they are now represented on our board. We also had a major expansion north from Bloomington Normal up to Minunk and through Flanagan, the City of Toluca, and Winona. This was an important expansion for us because it allowed us to connect also with MTCO and iFiber up in Winona. Anytime we can connect with another network carrier, it allows for more opportunities both for them and for us in servicing our respective customers. The other thing that was really important about this is that in our geography, the entire Suburban network, there were no public K through 12 school districts that were not a client of ours. Every one of them signed up under the grant. And so we were able to add the Flanagan-Cornell School District. It was the first K through 12 public school district we added after the grant closed. So that was a big accomplishment for us because that was one of the major initiatives when President Obama first originally introduced the funding for this, was to get schools in rural areas connected so they had the same learning opportunities as kids sitting at a school in a big city. The city of Pontiac also commissioned us to do 2 major expansions in their community. One was along Old Route 66, which many of the larger employers are located, and then also on Deerfield Road. Deerfield Road is the frontage road out by Highway 55. There's a large warehouse there, Exact Packaging, with a lot of cornfield around it. All that cornfield is owned by the city of Pontiac, and it's earmarked for development. So they had us extend all the way down to the end of the road to help in marketing the properties. I don't know if it was entirely because of Surbin, but after Surbin was installed and they added that to their marketing material, it was announced that a hotel developer purchased land on Deerfield and is breaking ground this summer. And there's also another for-profit business that has purchased land recently and is going to be moving out there as well. We had an expansion in Mahomet that was kind of interesting. The Mahomet Seymour School District and the Village of Mahomet had reached out to the Surbin grant team originally to get connected. And at that time, all of the money for construction was already earmarked for different projects. So they took the initiative to lay fiber optic cable in the ground themselves and just ask Surbin to provide the service. So it's like they put in the water pipes but didn't have any water. And so we started providing service to them, and over time worked out a management agreement where basically they gave us access to the entire network to continue adding on new customers in Mahomet and servicing them and also managing the network. So they own the assets, and it's a management agreement basically for no money at all that turns it all over to us to run for them. So we've continued to add new customers, and this is just a sampling of some of the customers that we've added since the grant is closed. We've added customers in all the markets we serve throughout central Illinois. And it's been a lot of fun bringing high-speed internet to many places where they don't have it. The way our operating agreement has been written for Surbin, the member entities do not put any money in, nor can they take any money out. All of the money generated by Surbin is reinvested in Surbin. And so we recently undertook a large upgrade to our core backbone of our network. And we're switching from an Ethernet network to a layer 3 network, an MPLS network. It allows for really infinite growth as far as the amount of customers that we can serve with the available fiber that we have. We're really excited. Our tech guys are totally geeked out about it, and they love it right now. And they've learned a lot as well. So that's been great, and it's been great that we've been able to operate the network such that it's generating the revenue to be able to do things like that. So Surbin is a high-speed fiber optic network providing services in central Illinois at affordable rates. And one of the things that we talk about sometimes is giganomics. And I can't take credit for making this up, but giganomics is basically the use of fiber optic networks to drive economic development. And so we've partnered with the communities we've served. We've also added incentives to incentive packages they've put together for entities to bring them to town. And we helped with that here in Bloomington Normal when R.R. Donnelly was brought to town. We created an incentive from Surbin for R.R. Donnelly as well. And we also, it's amazing, we will receive calls at the office from real estate agents, commercial real estate agents, asking if certain properties along the Surbin network, because it helps drive desirability, site location, and even the price. The price goes up when they have access to multiple broadband carriers. I know many of you are familiar with Slingshot. I had a quote there from Michael Summers at Slingshot and what Surbin means to the startup community he's serving. We've also helped sponsor some of the hackathons that they have, and they've got one coming up as well. And the tech guys really like it when you give them a lot of bandwidth. So, one last thing. I know the town is heavily engaged in BN Advantage, and Surbin was selected by the EDC as one of the companies to highlight in the BN Advantage video as what makes Bloomington Normal different than other communities. So, that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
I just want to point out, Rob Fazzini's in the back of the room, one of the directors. He's the secretary-treasurer. He's kind of our money guy. I wonder why. But Rob's great, and he's a great asset to our board. He represents the city of Bloomington.
Questions or comments? Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Good update.
Thanks for coming.
That concludes our business tonight. Before motion for adjournment, are there concerns or comments?
I just wanted to point out that you were provided with this document at your table. This is the first section of the comp plan, still in draft form. We call it the existing conditions report, but it's got several sections loaded with really good information. Very high-quality report. I think as you flip through it, you'll see it's very well done. Thanks to Mercy, who's very involved in this, and our staff at Regional Planning Commission. But this is a taste of what is yet. There's a lot more yet to do. We've got another, probably a full year worth of work, but this is a great start. So we're real proud of this and hope you take the opportunity to flip through it. I think you'll find a lot of good information.
Ms. Lorenz?
Just want to give a shout out and a public announcement, I suppose, to a really interesting event coming up at our Children's Discovery Museum. I happened to be at the Garlic Press, and I'm standing behind a couple of Discovery Museum employees, and I began to talk with them and lamenting that I don't get to go there, my children are too old, and they said they have an adult event coming up in May 13th, and it's like a throwback to the 1980s. So I'm planning to go, and I just wanted to share it with the group here tonight.
Great.
If you remember the 80s.
Further comments, concerns? Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Hi.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. We are adjourned.
So who's with me?
I'll be around that day.
Sorry about that.